So what's going to be interesting in the dyno testing will be performance, of course, right? And if you saw the previous episodes talking about this Motec conversion, you know, I covered some of the reasons why we're doing this, but I'll just recap that here. So we're trying to provide more performance out of an engine than the stock ECU would allow. And Motec's a very powerful system. We'll be adding things that we haven't had in the past. So for an example, NOx sensors, closed loop Lambda control for fuel management. Those are two things at least to talk about specifically, but a big change for us, this is the first drive-by-wire control on the throttle bodies that we've done. So there's quite a few changes that we're undertaking here. What's going to be interesting is performance, of course, back to that, right? So we know what the bike performs previously with a stock ECU, with certain headers, with certain airbox, and so on. And it will be interesting to see at the end of the day where performance is. And so today the start of this is really get the engine running, doing the basics. This will probably be about a 2-day project in total. And so I'll drag you along so you can experience this with us, okay? So again, this is over at George Dean Racing Engine Development up in Linwood, Washington. And as soon as we get in here and get working on this thing, I'll drag you along, okay? So we're in the middle of George Dean's dyno engine building business. And just to give you an idea here, I'll give you a little tour. You can see his operation here, pretty extensive. Motors everywhere, of course. And taking a break for a minute. We're trying to get all set up here for a run later today. So this is the console, if I can point to it here. This is the console to run the dyno itself. And here we're going to set up here for controlling our Motec system. And back to my engine again. This is my 19 RR motor, ZX10RR motor. We just added a small little degree wheel here so we can zero in the timing for piston number 1 for top dead center. Got to get our throttle bodies put on and so on. You can see I have my my exhaust system in place here. This is the 4-into-1 with the custom Nixon heat barrier that's in place, so that's quite trick, with 2 Lambda sensors and so on. And show you some more of the dyno. So this is the dyno, this is called an eddy brake dyno. Uses electrical current to control the load. And here with the shaft, he's got a coupler built that actually slips right into the spline on the gearbox itself for the engine. So a very nice setup actually. And this room is sound barrier and so on. So it's quite nice. But anyway, let's get back to it. I'll show you more later. Say hi, George.
Hey, hey. Oh, shoot.
So this is the 2019 ZX10RR motor. We're getting it prepped for the new harness. George is doing his magic touch. We're putting an adapter in place for a timing wheel. It's early. George doesn't want to talk much yet.
No. Yeah, I'm getting ahead of myself. I probably should have set the engine at top dead center using the stock timing marks. So at least I'm in the ballpark.
So this is George Dean Racing Engines dyno. This thing is awesome. He's got this custom built dyno facility here. If you can see this thing, it's quite trick actually.
I can't do that. Something bad will happen if I do that. So that's not happening. Is this going in?
It's not happening. Depends on what set. So this is Shane. He's doing his thing.
Hey, Mom.
This is George. You met George earlier. So we're doing kind of pre-checkout stuff, trying to get this thing ready to crank over.
36 was like the maximum advance on this thing.
I'm not gonna get there, am I? Let's have this be 15,000.
Ignition off now.
Yeah, ignition can be off. We're just gonna crank the engine. So give me.
There we go.
Go. Stop. Cranking capture. Ooh. Yep. Okay. It's 15 before.
Okay.
So I think turn on the fuel pump and let's see what happens. So do we have, hold on a second before we go any further. 425 divided by 6.89. So yeah, 61 pounds of fuel pressure, right? So that's probably legit.
Okay.
All right.
And he's showing 60 up there. He's tracking too.
It's close enough. Okay, I think crank it and let's see what it does. Okay. Oh, you know what?
top end out of it.
Hey YouTube, hi, hey, it's Mark. Just an update for you. So we finished day one of engine tuning. Actually, it was a great day. We finished up, believe it or not, at 224 horsepower. which is fantastic actually. Just to give you an idea, the same motor previously on Dyno was 206 or 207, I think it was. So we're up about 20 horsepower, which is awesome. So really tickled. So today we're back on Dyno again. And today we will be doing basically some fine tuning pieces, you know, working on the knock sensors, you know, adjusting some of the idle parameters and setup for starting the motor and things like that. And then we'll do obviously several polls, and we'll be fine tuning some of the you know, ignition and fuel maps to a degree again. So today's just kind of a wrap up. We should have no issues today when we finish, and roughly right around 224, 225 horsepower out of a 1-liter motor, and that's on 100 octane Sunoco fuel. Pretty fantastic actually. So we're really pleased. Motor continues to pull strong, well past 14,000 RPM. And power band, and I'll show you dyno charts and things later. Power band seems to be around 10.5 or 11K, kind of in that range, to all the way up to 14 and climbing. So it's definitely a high revving motor in its peak power. So anyway, let's get back into it today and see what's going on, okay? All right, bye.
A little more throttle.
Hey YouTube, hi, this is Mark. Kind of a conclusion of the last 2 days of dyno tuning. We were up in Washington. If you followed along, we were at George Dean Racing Engines, where he's my engine builder itself, and he has the dyno facility and so on. So we had a Motec engineer there on site to go through this, the tuning aspects. I just want to talk to you a little bit about the outcomes. I got to tell you before I get into all that, you know, fantastic, overachieved by far what the expectations were. So fantastic. But let me talk about a little bit of what we did and ultimately where we ended up. So 2 days of testing, as I said, and this was the complete conversion from stock electronics and so on. So if you followed the winter project that I started a couple months ago, and I've had a couple episodes along this this winter project, I shared some of the details on that. But we were out for all-out performance, of course, right? Trying to put a few extra safety margins and things in place, like knock sensor protection, that kind of thing. But we wanted to answer a lot of questions like, you know, what's the right race fuel to run? 110 leaded, for an example, versus the 100 Sunoco unleaded that I've been running. You get the idea. So this tuning and this conversion had a lot of those pieces built into it. Let me get into the outcome quickly, and then some of the testing pieces that we did. So We achieved 223 horsepower with about, I think it was 91 foot-pounds of torque. And I'll show you the chart here in a minute. On day one, actually, so blown away with the results. Day two, the top peak horsepower was down a little bit. I think it was around 218 in that ballpark. But keep in mind, this is a SuperFlow engine dyno. All dynos, this and all of them, they apply their standard correction each day or every time you're running. And for those of you who are not aware of what I'm speaking to, they use weather stations to determine, what's the humidity, air temp, barometric pressure, etc. And they apply a standard correction to basically have a baseline, kind of a standard platform to test a tune on. And so anyway, that's why the numbers were slightly different. But that's also true from previous last year. So let me back up a little bit. When this same motor was tuned, and I ran this for the last year, this same motor I produced, I think it was 207 peak horsepower. And today we're at about 223. Around 220, 223, I think is a safe number. So we're at least 13 plus horsepower more. So fantastic from that aspect of things. So what are some of the things that we did? So we first tried to change the ignition trigger to use a 36 tooth instead of 24, which is the stock. We were not able to do that. The gap between the sensor and the teeth on the trigger wheel were just too close together. We worried we would have had some false triggers. And then we had to use this kind of a weird approach, a map or a pressure sensor on cylinder one to align with the sink. So that actually went very, very quickly. It was a no-brainer. But from there, we played with a typical that you would expect, right? So we determined quickly that the engine is not going to be knock sensitive, that we were able to actually go past top power on the ignition timing. We could go as far advanced as we would want, and we'd have no knock. And so we were able to actually sweep through full retard, full advance, and find the optimal power at minimal advance. So we did that, pretty standard stuff. This engine has two injectors per cylinder, one in each throttle body and then one in the upper airbox. And we were able to play with the ratios between upper and lower. We were able to move timing between when injectors fire, right, to get that point of fire, at the perfect horsepower. So if you think about it, like the top injectors, right? I didn't measure it, but 7, 8, 9 plus inches above the top of the valve, versus the injector that's in the throttle body is a lot closer, of course, right? So moving the when you fire injector timing around made a difference. Actually, we saw, I think it was close 2.5, 3 horsepower just by doing that. So that was way cool. But we did multiple sweeps, back-to-back runs, verified, the approach we were taking was the right one. And I got to tell you, the M series Motec, fantastic. Clearly overachieved what we were looking for. Ultimately moved, obviously, the engine into closed loop Lambda control, and watching it track dynamically between the different RPM ranges is fantastic. So we found with this package, so this is, we're running the 100 octane unleaded. Again, ZX10RR motor. This is a 2019 that we used. 4-into-1 headers, not 4-to-1, okay, and custom airbox and so on. We didn't push the compression that high in this motor. I think the builder, George, said it was about 14.7, 14.8 in that range, just for your reference. And we saw peak power right at about 10.5 coming on, all the way up to 14,000, and just continued to climb. And we're going to probably rev limit ourselves around 14.1 or so thereabouts on the track, just for safety margin. But you know, this engine, you know, clearly can do about 14.4, 14.5, kind of in that range. So that's the summary. I hope you enjoyed this. Stay tuned for more. So this is the graph of the first day run. I thought I would show this with you. Here, this top line in red is the horsepower, and in blue is your torque curve. So you can see midsection with the 4-into-1 headers, not quite as strong as 4-to-1 as you would expect, but it came on extremely strong up here, call it around 11,000, and just continued to climb all the way up with it looked like no sign of actually slowing. So pretty impressive. So that's the peak that we saw in power torque performance. Okay, so last little bit before I let you go today. So now I have to wrap up the engine harness, get that buttoned up, get it in the car, of course, and focus on installation lap and starting to test and tune the car. So I'm hoping in about 10 days thereabouts, we'll have this thing fired up. We will be able to get it on track for initial shakedown laps and so on shortly thereafter. I will bring you along so you can experience this. So, you know, look for, you know, initial fire up activities. I'll have a video on that. I'll do a video when we do our installation laps. When I get the team out where we start doing testing and tuning, you know, on track, I'll bring you along for that as well, so you can experience that. And of course, race day. The first race for me this year, kind of a late start, is going to be the May 7, 8, 9. It's a double header U.S. Majors event. So I'll bring you along there as well. I think you'll enjoy experiencing what that's like, all the steps that we go through, the challenges, the headaches, you know, the joys, whatever it may come, right? So that's just a quick update for you. Again, I hope you've enjoyed this winter project series so far. I think you know, there was a lot learned in the Motec conversion. So anyway, that's it today. See ya. Bye.